Now, the first kind of feet that I'm going to go over are my most common types drawn, because I come from drawing cats and lions and general feline-esque creatures. So for feline feet, the most important thing you can do is grab references. Now, references can include pictures, it can include other tutorials, but I tend to like pictures because I can bring a foot from the pose that I want. Now, when it comes to drawing the paw, there's an easy way to start your shapes. Generally, on any paw, the toes group together into a sort of triangular shape that's rounded. It's taller at the top and shorter at the sides. Now, one thing that a lot of people will do is they will map out the toes, which is a good idea, especially if you're trying to just do a sketch or a planned I lost the word. Dang it. A sketch or just a thumbnail. Thumbnail is what I was talking about. Like a thumbnail. One thing to remember for any and all feet of any creature is that they all follow the same general rules for bones. There is always the ball of the foot, ankle, toes. For big cats like this, a lot of people mistake the this part of the foot to not be the ankle, which is kind of strange considering if you look at the general outlay, the toes connect quite obviously to the rest of the foot. Now, I can understand people when doing the entire leg. Not understanding that, like, the paws that a lot of digitigrade animals, well, all digitigrade, since that is the definition, they're just walking on their toes. The paw part that a lot of people just call the entire foot is just the toes. This part is the plane of the foot. Ankle. Knee. Etc. Now, when I'm drawing a feline foot, an easy way to trip up is to rely on sharp angles. Or to imagine that the dew claw is a thumb. This could work for some cartoons, like Lion King style. If you look at Scar, when he's playing with the mouse, his dew claw does act as a thumb, but that's anthropomorphized paws. For a more realistic paw, especially in large cats, the toes are very rounded. And there's not a lot of sway between the width of the toes and the width of the rest of the foot. It's very uniform. In some positions, the dew claw cannot even be seen. Like in the front position, it's very hidden in the back. I actually drew that too high, my bad, whoopsie. It is part of the rest of the foot, so it needs to be lower. This uniform structure is pretty even across even house cats. If you'll notice, a lot of house cats, they just look like they have nubs if you don't look too closely. That's because the toes and the rest of the foot are pretty uniform in width. A good way to remember the proportions of the foot are to imagine that the toes are these rounded rectangular shapes. This line I'm putting is for the claw. If you remember that the front part of the toe is this shape, you can pretty much draw them in any oh shit, what's the, any orientation, there you go. Now, I tend not to go entirely realistic with my toes unless they need to be. I prefer something more natural to me, which is closer to Lion King style. Like my go-to paw is quite large-toed. And quite soft. It still keeps to that uniformity of leg to foot to toe. Here's my go-to. One thing to remember about the paw pads of a cat as opposed to a dog is their paw pads, unless they are like a snow leopard or something, which the snow leopards, they still have the large paw pads, but they're mostly covered up with fur, is that they are arranged in an almost triangular structure rather than being straight across. one thing to remember about cats. The only time you are going to see claw marks in a paw print, like left behind in snow or something, is if they are running with their claws extended, which that is not very common. Their claws are pretty fragile, so it would not make sense to run where the claws can be broken. For the claws, the toe is this strange rectangular, triangular, rounded shape connected to the foot. And it comes out of a sheath here. The sheath, you will see if the claw is extended fully. This fur on top and around the sheath tends to flip up when the claw is extended because it's attached. Now the claw in cats that can retract their claws completely can vary in length, but they tend to stick out just enough to be deadly. They can be wicked sharp, they can be pretty blunt, they can be really, really curved. Like there are some types of cat where their claw creates a sickle shape. For a back view of the paw, remember that this paw needs to hold weight. It would not make sense for it to be very shapeless. Think about how your foot looks when you are standing on your toes. All of your weight is distributed on the ball of your foot, and there is a defined shape to it. This shape follows through on paws as well. The muscles and tendons and stuff in the foot of many creatures, even going into horses and mules and cows, follow the same kind of shapes. Now, from a extreme back view, it's not likely that you'll see the dew claw at all. You will see a bit of toe. But not much of anything else. There are resting pads on the back of every paw. You can see this in dogs a lot. There'll be a patch on their ankle of fur missing, and there might even be an extended pad. Never forget these. They can be quite large in big cats. They're quite small in domestic cats, but they're still there. Now for different positions other than just the average pressure position. That's most common. This sort of limp, hangy position is also quite common. It still follows the same basic layout. Ankle, triangle toes connected to the arm. Just never forget that the ankle is very important to the layout of the rest of the foot. Toes, ankle. Don't forget the toe. Should we call this a thumb for the rest of the thing? Because it's basically what it is. That's way too short. Never mind. This needs to be moved up here. These toes are much too small. La 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 la. That's closer. You get the idea. Weird angles. These tutorial pages will be available on Patreon a week before they're available anywhere else. So, if you would like to join Patreon, you can get these for as little as $5 a month, which is pretty damn cheap, just saying. And it helps me out a ton.